So, anyways,
So this is also very similar to Laser Puzzle, right, Sergey? If not, if not exactly the same.
Oh, no, it's not the same.
It's not the same at all. Laser Puzzle. I'm looking at Laser Puzzle, and it looks very
but he
similar in that
uses, I bet you money that he does some of the similar calculations, reflections at a 45-degree angle, or a 90-degree angle, I'm sorry.
Okay. So some elements, but not exactly the same.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I was saying, side note, is that this game was surprisingly popular in that, in addition to having pre-made levels, they put a level editor in here that lets you make your own. And I think users on Steam made something like 40,000 levels
Wow.
for this game, which is crazy. So, anyways, people look at this and they say, "Hey, how can I make that?" And they try and they fail. And the reason they try and fail is when you look at it, it says, "Oh, your brain says, oh, that's easy. It's just a 45-degree angle. And when it hits it, it's going to bounce off. It's going to do what I want." I mean, basically, if you look at it, these pieces are all aligned on a grid. Forget about the artwork in the background. But if you look at these, their centers all line up. So in a sense, what's going on here, and I say that, but you'll notice that there's an offset here. See how this one's offset?
Yeah.
And that's going to be part of our discussion today. Is people don't see that. Their brain doesn't trigger on that. They're just playing the game, having a good time. And their brain says, look, it's a 45-degree angle. I can just make my piece, and it hits it, it'll work. And it doesn't work. And then they're surprised, and they don't know why. So I'm going to explain why. And I'll say ahead of time that we're going to get to the end of this whole discussion. And the takeaway will be some samples that I'll show you, a piece of code where I give like a step-by-step and explain why it works a certain way and it doesn't work the other way and what's going on. And this comes with a rudimentary editor and level loader, so you can make your own levels, and you can see how to make easily in Corona a very basic level editor in just I think it's like 200 and something lines of code for the level editor, and about that many lines of code for the level loader. And I might be off by like 100 lines, but even if it's 300 lines, it's very short.
Okay.
Where was I going with that? So I guess let's just jump in. So all right, so let me get my code up here, and I will show you the code first, just so you can see where it is. This is already committed on the Git, but we'll provide a link at the end of the show, and it's in the Hangouts. I can make that folder, and there's a subfolder called Ichi, or Ichi, Mechanics, not Itchy. Mechanics. In this folder, there'll be the README and the main Lua, but there will be 3 files called sample123. There's another one called talk, and game, and editor. And I will go through each of these, but those are the main code files. You'll notice that this uses SSK. Pretty much from now on as I do these, I'm going to exclusively use SSK because it shortens the discussion and lets us focus on the key components. But as I go along in this discussion, I'll show you a few things that I'm doing so you can understand both what SSK is doing here that helps us and why I'm using it. So let me bring my code over and make sure you can read it. When you download this project, hopefully, if I'm recalling correctly, main Lua will look like this. It'll have my little copyright statement at the top that says, in a nutshell, you can use this stuff any way you want, except you can't tell people that you made it, and in its exact form, and you can't use it in like, oh shoot, I said jigsaw puzzle there. You cannot use it if you're making a tutorial or a book, not without my permission. So don't basically take my effort unchanged and use it and say, hey, I did this. That's all I'm asking. So it's not a great license. It's not an official, one of the officially recognized licenses, and I'm doing air quotes now. But the point is that little sip of coffee there, is that use it to make games. Use it to learn. That's what I'm trying for here. Okay, so at the top, I do my normal stuff. I change the buffering so I get the output right away in the console. I turn off the status bar because I hate that. I don't want it to show up on the device. one-liner, I load SSK, and then there's 3 sections here. So if I comment this out, it'll be a little more clear. There's this section here, the next section, and the 3rd section. So these are each independent of each other, but I did it this way just to make it easy for you to load them. And so when you get it, it's going to look like this. It's going to be loading sample 1, which is it's the first sample where you look at it and go, that should work. And then when you click it, it doesn't work. And you're like, oh, well, wait a minute. And then I'll explain. So I'll show you the sample, and then we'll go in and I'll do my talking bit. Now this example in Talk Lua, this was written for me to do this discussion. Feel free to look at it, but don't expect to understand exactly what is going on, because it's got all kinds of bits and code in there so that I can just set a number and go, see this? This is what's happening. It'll become clear. So this is my little helper for our discussion today. It's not for you to go, I can extract something from that and use it. No. That's what the samples are for, and the editor and the game running bit. That's what those are for. So let me go ahead and full screen this, or make it bigger anyways. So can you see that okay?
Yes.
Okay, so what are we seeing here? In Ichi, you've got square blocks, among other things, and you've got these triangular blocks, bumpers. And the expectation is that when the ball is moving, if it hits the square block, it's going to bounce back in this direction. It's going to follow this line. And your mind tells you, when it hits this bumper, it's going to go from here, and it's going to be right here, centered on the line and follow the line, centered on the line and follow the line. It's going to follow this path. Now, one thing I didn't say is the way this is written is when you load it, it's paused. But if you click one time on the ball, the little player guy here, you'll start moving. Also, okay, in sample 2, I think I put a thing in here where you can click on the triangle ones and they will rotate. So you can change the orientation. I'm not 100% sure if I remember that being correct or not. Anyways, so let's click on this and see what happens. Okay, that's right, and this is wrong. Already, we're off. What's going on here? It hit this, but it's way off track. Now, so let's let it run a little bit more. Suddenly, it's back on track, and it's off track again. So I will cat out of the bag first, I guess, here. What's going on is your mind is telling you one thing, but really what is going on is the collision point, which is what changes the direction of the ball, is not here. It's over here. So if this isn't clear, let's go ahead and bring up my talking point.
Is that just because a round ball hitting is hitting the triangle on the edge first before it's hitting in the middle?
Yes, that's why I did. It's really hard to see it. So what I'm doing is I'm going to bring up the talking points. And it'll make it more clear. Okay, so let's start off with this guy. This one's clear. Absolutely no question what's going to happen. It's a flat surface, round ball. In fact, if I turn on the hybrid mode, let me just do that momentarily. You'll see that here's the outline of the collision shape for this. So it's going to hit this, and here's the collision shape for, it's probably a little harder to see, for the ball. It's going to move along the path, and it's going to bounce back.
And let's make a note right there that oftentimes a lot of people will try and put a square collision on a round ball, whereas in the physics engine you can specify a circular collision detector or circular body on a round surface. So this is the right way to do it. I see it wrong so frequently that I wanted to make that point.
A new image rect here.
Yeah.
I specify a radius for the body, otherwise this would come out as a square.
Yes.
So, and then people, right, it's good that you mentioned that, because I just recently saw some questions from 2 different people in the forums saying, hey, I made a bullet and it didn't bounce off the wall I expected it to. And the reason it didn't bounce off the wall they expected it to is because their shape of their art may have been some appropriate shape, but then they used new image rect, and they didn't
Yes.
specify a radius, and they had this blocky square shape. And then, of course, they didn't know how to investigate it, or they did not choose to.
And it's a very frequent beginner error.